There's an old saying that says that what's not for you will hurt you until you let it go. Like the reality is that we try to control every situation. Like we try to control the outcome. We try to control how people speak to us, how we relate to them. We try to control where they want to be or where they are or how we move in our lives. We don't have control over everything and everyone. And I think sometimes our desire to see something happen, our desire for something good to happen, to come to fruition, overtakes our understanding of our reality. And we fall into this rut of needing to control the situation or feeling like we don't have control of the situation and losing that reality of our lives based on the things that we think we need or we want. You don't have to control everything. You can't. You physically can't. It's not possible. And at the end of the day, you're going to cause more harm and more hurt to yourself thinking that you can fix anyone else, thinking that you can cause anyone else to see what you can see, thinking that you will be able to manipulate the situation into being what it needs to be. Sometimes things just hurt, and it's not your job to control it. So thank you for jumping on this episode, and I think this is an interesting one because control is a thing that a lot of us suffer with. Control is a struggle, and I'll be completely candid with you. I actually recorded this episode somewhere else because I wanted to control the outline of the time frame and how it was. Obviously, this is my job, so I have to be able to produce these things effectively, and I wanted to find a way where I could just kind of do it from the comfort of another place and trying to fit everything in my schedule and fit every place that I'm in and all this stuff that realistically is just not possible to do. But I realized it's perfect because that is a control metric. Like we think that if we control everything, we'll be able to put everything in the same place, in the same box. And if we have control over our time frame, over the people that are in our lives, over the bad situations, over the hopeful things, we think that if we're able to just control those things, that we can control how they work and how effective they are. And the reality is that you're going to cause yourself so much stress trying to control every situation. And we talk about this mountain of control. There's so many things that come to mind with this, so many struggles that we face and we have, and so many conversations that I've had, because at the end of the day, our need to control comes from so many things. One of the main realities is that we can't control situations because, or we want to control situations at least, because of things that have happened to us in our past. So like our parents or parental wounds, or they've told us that we had to do X, Y, and Z, and we couldn't control the outcome of the situation. So we are still battling that. Or we talk about relationships, which is always low-hanging fruit, but a whole reality where we tend to date the same person in different bodies because we try to control the outcome of what would have been. So what's happening is that you're looking for the same toxic habits or behaviors in all these places and trying to make that happen there. You think you can save the person you couldn't save before. And because you've convinced yourself of the storyline, this is why everyone seems to be the same. We always have that word, that saying that people say that, oh, well, all men are the same or all women are the same. No, you're just dating the same person. You are looking for what's activating your nervous system and toxicity because you become so accustomed to it that you think that that's love, and it's not. In that reality, we're trying to control the outcome of that. Maybe not with that same person, but with someone similar with their same issues, same attributes, even same physical attributes. Because we think that if we can control that situation, then we can fix something in us. You do not have the power to control everything. And your need to control is the reason that you aren't happy. Like think about like most of like the mystics and all these people who live these amazing lives and have all these things going on. The reality is that they understood to a fault how much little control they really had. They understood that trying to manipulate and control every situation is exactly how you become miserable. Now, I'm not dismissing work and effort and being able to produce things because, that's the reality. You are created to create. You have that gifting. You have that ability. But you can't control every single outcome. You can only do what you can do. You can show up how you can show up, but it's not your job to control every single thing. And there are certain things that we've been called to let go of. Some things don't break us because they hurt. They break us because we refuse to let go. There's reality where we are being dragged. You let go or you're dragged. You think that by holding on more, you're going to be able to manipulate that situation or control that situation to produce the outcome you wanted to, and all it's doing is hurting you. There's only so much you can do. You can show up how you can show up. You can show up and give how you can give. But you can't expect those things to respond how you anticipate that they will respond. Whether it's your career or schooling or your relationships, romantic, platonic, whatever it is, there's only so much that we can control. And understanding this is one of the most freeing things you will ever do. Like knowing that if you gave every bit of effort, if you showed up, if you tried, if you were the one that actually did the things, you can't hold yourself accountable for the way they responded or didn't respond. You can't take it upon you to be upset or sad with you because you think that you needed to control the outcome. You did everything you could. You showed up the way you needed to. You tried, you apologized, you grew, you became better, but you cannot expect people to respond to your healing. They're only going to respond to their wound. And we can't control how they respond, period, because it's not our job. It's not even in our ability. It's so difficult to change your own mind, to control your own mind. What makes you think you're going to do that for anyone else? But a lot of us are holding on to things that are just dragging us in hopes that it would stop one day and come towards us. And we're broken because of that. Because we are trying to convince what cannot see us to see us. We're trying to convince what does not want to stay. You are holding on, and it's making you more broken. It's not your job to convince anything or anyone. It's your job to produce space. It's your job to produce love. It's your job to show and create, but it's not your job to force. And control tells us that we need to have everything under our thumb, that we need to be the ones that make everything happen. So this episode is for that. It's for the people that keep carrying pain that they were never assigned to them. And they keep wondering why they're so exhausted, because you're carrying all this heaviness and all this weight that wasn't yours to carry. In any stage of your life, in any stage of any relationship, you're not meant to control everything. Just because you understand someone's pain doesn't mean you're responsible to fix it. Like just because you can relate to someone's hurt, just because you can show up or how they have needed you to show up, or just because you know what that feels like does not mean that it's your job to force them to accept it. Sometimes we hurt ourselves trying to heal other people, not realizing that they don't want to be healed. You can't force a person who has become comfortable with their pain to understand that they need to let it go. And what happens for a lot of us is that we think, well, if we try harder, if we show up more, if we do this more, that they're eventually going to see how much it hurts. And all you're going to do is cause yourself more pain. You're hurting yourself trying to convince someone else that they should let go of their hurt. That's just an insane way to live life. To think that if I absorb their pain, that they'll be free from it. They won't. Because it's not your job. All you're doing is not producing to hurt people. And for a lot of our relationships in our lives and the things we do, it stems from different ways that we've been hurt, right? Because if we can relate to a pain, we think, well, I know what that feels like. And then we think that we can mitigate that and change that in a person, but that person does not think like you. These people do not think like you. These places do not think like you. You need to understand that it is not your job to force somebody to heal. You can provide your advice and your warm space and your comfort and all these things to people who desire it. You have to be very clear on it, because people show us where they want us. They show us if they want us near or far. They will, through their actions, not even their words, they will show us where we belong in their lives. And if we continue to sit here and beg people to see what we are and who we are and what we offer, you'll make sure that they see that you're worth nothing. Because if you have to diminish you and sell yourself short just for them to accept you, they will know that they can get you at the cheapest price possible. And they'll keep you close because you're cheap to keep by. It's convenient for them. You end up hurting yourself thinking that you can heal them by being that. And you can't. There is no sense in ever creating this in us. Because we know that they're hurting and we can understand it, we can empathize with it. But it's not your job to give yourself the pain in efforts and hope to take it away from them. You can love people deeply without absorbing their pain. There's something that happens when we see these hurts and think that we can control the outcome of them. We think that we are healed enough ourselves or big enough ourselves to deal with this problem. There's so many people who just desire happiness for other people. And this might be the shoe that fits you. You desire people to be joyful and to be happy and to be healed. And that's beautiful and good and useful and necessary. To be real, that's one of the most necessary things in this world, because this is such a broken world and we need people who are trying to make the world better. But in that same breath, just because you're compassionate doesn't mean that you betray yourself. You can't confuse empathy with responsibility. You can't take on things that were not meant to be taken on by you. And there are some people who see that and use that. They'll see that you are willing to give, and they'll continue to take. Our need to control other people's emotions and their healing stages have caused us so much hurt. But at the same time, in that same breath again, we can't even blame them, because they've shown us what they are and who they are. We've continued to believe that there'll be something else. And they might heal and grow one day, but it's not your job or responsibility to force them into it. The trigger for a lot of us is that we think that we have to show up for people how we would want someone to show up for us. Now, again, another one of those disclaimer things, you should continue to be you. You should continue to be warm. Don't let this cold world make you cold. But you also need to be conscious and aware of what's happening. Because if you're showing up to a place where it's not being reciprocated, it's simply being taken, that's not showing up for them. That's just abandoning yourself. People call it loyalty. I call it stupidity. You think you're loyal to a person that hurts you, that doesn't love you, that doesn't give in to you. That's not loyalty. You're not loyal to them. You're just being disloyal to yourself. You're producing pain and hurt in you and efforts for them to finally wake up and stop feeling their own pain. You are not being loyal. You're being disloyal. By absorbing and dealing with their pain, you're causing yourself more pain. When we heal and we help from the parameters that we can establish with them, the boundaries, the borders that we have with these people, allowing us to not be overused. Because this is the truth, that us thinking that we can control how they feel just because we can relate doesn't mean that they're going to actually be good to us. People are so used to the hurt that they've been in that they think that this is all they know. Like, just because you're surviving something doesn't mean you need to stay there. Just because you've been able to get through a certain time frame in a certain time window doesn't mean that you continue to pour into that place, because you're ruining any option or opportunity in the future for yourself. I've seen situations where people have poured into hurt people so much for so long, and they've ruined themselves. And they've hurt themselves in a way that it's just like they're trying to respond to that wound and everything else. Allowing themselves to be in these type of things have stolen from them the ability and the possibility of anything more. Because again, this control factor, I think if I continue to pour in and heal and show up, that they will eventually see. You don't need someone that would eventually see you for you. You need someone that's going to pour into you completely. And this necessity to control how it looks like or the outcome of it kills us. Unfortunately, we're falling more into this culture of control than it is surrender. And there's something beautiful that happens in surrender, because when you are able to actually surrender, you're able to not create this hyperfixation with the outcome. You're able to simply live, do the things you need to do, take the steps you need to take, and actually live in that reality and not need to hyperfixate on tomorrow. This is where anxiety comes from. This is where these anxious thoughts happen. This outcome of what's next, what's what. There's a whole saying that says life is supposed to be a journey, right? It's supposed to be an adventure. You're supposed to enjoy it. This is the reality that it's supposed to be, but it's not, because we have become hyper fixated with outcomes that we haven't allowed ourselves to live in reality. We haven't allowed ourselves the grace and space to know that we cannot control everything, and we're not supposed to. This mountain of control for a lot of people, again, it stems from so many other things, from things that have been said to them or things that have been done to them, or ways that they've lived their lives in the past. And they think that, well, I can never go back to those things. I want you to understand that the people who are living the most purposeful and joyful lives are people who do what they have to do. And they'll show up for themselves in the most disciplined way and consistently. But they are very conscious and aware that they can only do what they can do. They cannot force anything else to exist. They cannot force anything else to happen. They can't force these things to continue to just come out the way their mind, their brain thought of it. A lot of people are struggling with that reality, that they think they need to force things into existence. One thing that we have been taught for so long, and again, just this notion of control in relationships and control in outcome, is that there's an old saying, right? And you probably heard this when you were a kid. And when parents would tell kids, well, if he hit you, it's because he loves you, or he likes you, or he's interested in you. That is one of the worst pieces of advice I've ever heard. I get it, because that part of the brain, right? This is actually scientific. That part of the brain where love and hate, right, is the thin line, that whole thing, that's actually real. It's the part of the brain where it's activated, where there's almost sometimes hard to distinguish the two. It's the same part of the, well, we won't go too deep into that, but that same part is activated. And we tell kids when they're little, if they're bothering you, they're hitting you, they're picking on you, it's because they like you. So what happens even subconsciously or even consciously in our culture is that we've created a culture where people treat us bad and we think it's because they love us. Like they do things to us that hurt us, and then they say, well, no, it's because I care about you. But the reality is that it's not. You have been taught that suffering equates love. Now, to be clear, there is a level of suffering in love, right? That it is a sacrifice. It has to be something that gives in that reality. But it does not mean that the more suffering you go through, the more love you have for them. It does not mean that you continue to be hurt and feel like you're empty and alone just because you think that that's what love is. Again, there is suffering, there is sacrifice, there is offering of yourself fully, completely for this particular thing. But that suffering is meant to be purposeful, not purposeless. If you are being treated poorly, you need to understand that that's not love, that's use. And for a lot of people, the control factor kicks back in where they think that I need to make this work. So they do everything possible in their mind or everything they physically can to make this happen. You've been taught that if they treat you this way, it's because they care. But the truth is that if they treat you this way, it's because they care about the use they get from you. You're not meant to be used. You're meant to be loved and cherished. And if we're falling into this culture again, control is going to be the hugest factor for a lot of us. You can't control how they think or how they act. You can't control where they are. But you can control yourself. You can control the freedom and outcomes you let these things happen. You can control the things that you've allowed to continue. You can control this possibility and reality where these people no longer have access to you. There are so many factors there, and there's so many issues that people have lived with. Because again, this is one of those things that have been ingrained in us. We've been taught this culturally, and even our families. These are things that have been taught and passed down through generations. And we need to break that pattern. Because if not, we're going to stay in this false reality. Or our need for the outcome to look like our anticipation, for control again, is going to cause us to cause more pain. I had this conversation, I won't say with who or where, with an older person whom no longer has their spouse, and they were sharing with me how for years of their lives they've lived in this pain of all the things that their spouse caused them. And okay, first of all, before we preface this, just this, the story is really deep and really important, and try to get it quickly. But before I preface this, I'm not for divorce, and I'm not for those things where you just give up on the marriages and all this. I believe you should strive, and keep pushing hard as you can. But there are certain situations where it's just there's how much could a person take? No one should take that much because it shows you you're the only one in it. So just that little preface before that. We have situations in which this particular person was sharing with me where they were treated as poorly as you possibly think a person can. But in the efforts to look good, to control the narrative and the outcome of what people around them, what their family members said and saw, what society said and saw, what they themselves, with their kids and all these things, they didn't allow themselves to love themselves enough to leave something that made them clearly not loved. And this is a reality that a lot of people sit through something simply because the narrative outside has made them fear so much that they don't want the picture they've painted. They don't want the society they've made around them to call them out on it. This has to be one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever heard, because there's this reality that you are afraid to not look good because you're more concerned about other people's opinions. People will suffer in relationships to control the narrative outside of it. They will sit in silence and hurt in their wounds and never speak out, and never move out, and never change anything because they are concerned about what other people will say. And I can't imagine living in a way where you're constantly afraid of everything just because you want to control what it looks like everywhere. There are some situations in which we need to learn that our the only thing we can control is us. The outcome of our actions, not what people say, not their opinions, not what they're going to throw at us, but only us. Because control is a lie when you think it will change anyone else. But control is true when you know that making the choices over and over again can change you. So just that notion of control, especially in relationships, well, we'll come back to that last point that we want to make there. But this control over ourselves, I think this is the hardest one you will ever develop and ever grow. And this is where discipline kicks in. This is something I'm working on myself, right? And I've been sitting with this, and I was reading a study, and in the study it says that out of the flourishes of ideas, there's actually, shameless plug, in the book I'm working on, this is something that I was talking about in this book. It's actually chapter 2, really good. Probably one of my favorite chapters in the whole book is chapter 2, because we talk about fear, and we talk about our barriers and the things that don't allow us to step forward and step deeper. And there's a study that I read, and in this study it says that 90 to 95% of ideations or ideas that are brought in by person, this is self-reported, of course, statistic, only 5 to 8% of those ideas ever come to existence. Most people quoted fear as the main reason for them not doing anything. Like they thought about their peers, their family members, failure. They thought about all these things. They thought about controlling those outcomes, and they never actually did the thing. But the one way that we control our outcomes, the one way we actually make these things happen, again, something I'm working on myself, is discipline. The buildup of discipline in yourself is a denial of the lies in your mind. Is choosing what's going to actually happen, what's real, what's possible, over what your brain is telling you is a barrier. What's telling you that's not going to be a thing. The fear that you constantly live with, and we don't choose the things that will be fruitful and purposeful for us because we think, well, twofold. We think that the fear, right, that it's not going to happen, that we're going to be ridiculed, that people will talk about us. You know what? I'll share right here. If I had been afraid to post on social media, like if I had been afraid of people here, mind you, I'm a national speaker. I travel and I speak, and I've been speaking for years on stages of thousands of people. And if I had been afraid to take that leap from going from the physical, tangible, to the social component, none of this would have been a reality. Like I would have been stuck, or not stuck, maybe something else would have happened. I would have tried other places, but I would have been in one different place than I am today because I would have cared. I would have cared what people said. And to be honest, I did. In the very, very, very beginning, I was very self-conscious about how people perceive these videos, how people took the stuff that I was making and the things they would say. And I was thinking about, man, did I say that right? Was my tone or my cadence correct, and all these things. And as I grew and I realized that perfection is a lie, that just the controlling factor of needing to make this outcome how I wanted to wasn't real, it just became so liberating. It's like a weight off your shoulders when you realize that it doesn't matter what anyone has to say. It doesn't matter what you think is perfect or not perfect. It just matters that you're joyfully doing something that you feel has a purpose, and that you're willing to stick to it through the weather. Because for a long time, I was still creating content and nothing was changing. And then I realized that it didn't matter if it didn't change. It mattered that it was purposeful. And when that happened, everything clicked. Like everything just unrolled. In the matter of like a year, all these things kind of unfolded for me. And again, I use myself as an example, not to boast or brag, but it's only because I only know me. But I hope that it's encouraging, because it's the only way that you'll ever be able to produce anything, no matter what your practice or discipline is knowing that I have to weather the storm and be disciplined enough to believe enough that the outcome is not by any other metric of control, but by me showing up, by me doing what I have to do, by me choosing me over anyone else. We tend to hold ourselves back because the illusion of what we want other people to see is there. But when you take that blinder off, you take that veil off, you realize that it doesn't matter. We have to learn how to foster relationships with people around us that will love to see us win and not are in competition with us. There are some people in your lives that call themselves friends that are actually your enemies. That they're more concerned about watching what you do instead of encouraging what you do. That they're more concerned about competing against you than they are actually elevating you. I'm not in competition with anyone. I've put on people and tried to help people that I could have helped because they deserve it, not for anything else. And I think that the most healed version of us will do that, right? That will choose to elevate people instead of choosing to step on people, because it's easy to step down. It's harder to push up. And we are so caught in that cycle. You have to choose people to be around you that are going to feed into this, that you don't have to sit here and try to control the narrative or control how they treat you or control how they love you or how they show up for you, that they simply do because they care. They simply are because they care. And for a lot of people, we have this burnout with relationships because we're the only ones pouring into them. We're the only ones showing up for them. We're the only ones doing anything. We don't produce anything positive because we're the only ones there. You cannot keep pouring into people that don't even care if you're standing. Like, we can't continue to sit here and try to drag things along because we want to control where they are in our lives, because we want to control the outcome of it. Again, this factor of control, just because we want to. People will show you where they stand, and the choice is always going to be yours to accept it or not. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm not trying to force anyone to be in anything. If you don't want to be around me, I promise you I will make it easy for you. I will never be the one that will look again. I've made the effort in every relationship that I could, but if I have to be the only one making an effort, then we have to realize at that point it's not a relationship, it's you chasing. It's not you actually deciding to share something mutual, it's you trying to force something to happen. And when you come to a point in your life where you have to force anything with anyone to happen, you have to then choose less of you to choose more of them. You have to become this person that you don't want to be just because you're trying to control that outcome. So in this stage, in this season, I'm choosing to not have to beg people for anything. If you want to walk out, I'll hold the door for you, but I'll make sure that after you're out, I close it to you. We can have people we love from a distance and love them from a distance. We don't need to have them everywhere and every second and every place. And it's never animosity, right? It's always just this reality where we grow apart, but we can't force people to come back into that part. Control will be the one thing that will destroy a lot of us. Not positively, right? Because there's positive control where you're choosing to do the things that you can do. You're only responding to the things you can control. The negative portion of it, where you try to control people's minds and their outcomes and what they're doing and how they're showing up. And I think that if we continue living in this, if we continue trying to just force things to happen, I think that's where we have the worst life. You don't have to control every outcome. And the reality is you can't. Even if you wanted to, there are so many things that are just out of your control, period. But learning to embrace what you can control and doing what's possible there, that's where things are going to change. So just diving into that last portion of it, sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is grieve a version of you that you wanted. Sometimes the possibilities, the control of what we thought needed to be are going to hurt. When we come into acceptance that we don't have to be that person because that's coming from our past ideations or wounds or all these other things, we allow ourselves the grace and space to actually become who we're choosing to be. To not need to control the vision that other people have about us, the viewpoints, the opinions, to not need to bend backwards to the crowd, to not become a monkey in their circus. It's okay to just let things be. So again, just thank you for being on this episode. Thank you for your presence. I think this is one of the dopest things, again, about being able to have a podcast, that there are people that are constantly here. Maybe they're new people, and I'm grateful that you're here. And there's some people that are completely new, but just this moment just of gratitude. And I think that's one of the best ways to live life, right? Is to be able to just be grateful, to just show that you're grateful for something. And I think that when we begin to demean and demand everything else in our lives, we make it worse. Gratitude is one of the greatest things we'll ever have, and I'm grateful for this podcast, for the people that have given me the ability to do this, for those that just share their stories with me. I think that is probably the best portion of all of this. It's nice that I get paid. It's nice that I can create content. It's nice that I get to use my gifts, but the greatest gift that I've ever received has always been your stories. And I think that to me, that means so much. I'm just grateful for people that share those things. I'm just grateful for this episode and all these things. Thank you for being on, and we'll catch you on the next one. Oh, and before I do that, before a little sign off, that whole download stuff, just throwing that in there really, really helps. So the last portion, thank you for being on this episode, and we'll catch you in the next episode.